Hi everyone, Newthany Utano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Everything Everything album, Raw Data Feel. This is the 6th full-length LP from UK-based art pop and rock outfit Everything Everything. I was first captured by the band's music around 2013 or 2014 when I heard a few kind of progressive and rhythmically intense cuts off of their Arc record. There was something so catchy and also so forward-thinking about the way the band approached pop music, with notes of bands like Battles and Radiohead, as well as alternative dance outfits too. Not to mention the unique vocal stylings of frontman Jonathan Higgs, whose singing might not be everyone's cup of tea. The man just lets out notes like a passionate siren, that's all I can say. His vocals were also the perfect accompaniment for the bustling rhythms and intricate instrumental layers on the band's 2015 LP, Get to Heaven, which thus far in my opinion is really Everything Everything's creative peak. Now, it only took the band a few short years to follow this one up with 2017's A Fever Dream, an album that unfortunately I've mostly erased from my memory since then, cause in my opinion it was sort of a shock to hear the band suddenly playing it safe instrumentally on this one, tearing out many of the progressive quirks that made them so interesting to begin with. And to what benefit I don't know, because it's not like this record turned out catchier or bolder or more interesting. I ran into a lot of the same issues on their album Reanimator 2 a few years later. Now, in the band's defense, many of their eccentric qualities did remain on these records, but their overall picture just came across watered down in comparison with the band's earlier work. Which brings us to Raw Data Feel, an album I wasn't necessarily excited for given some of the teaser tracks. Granted, the glitchy tones and driving grooves of Teletype, the opener, have grown on me since I first heard them. Like, it's not the most stunning song on the record, but it does really work as an intro for what is probably the band's most electronics-driven project yet. Still, I do kind of find the rapid-fire lyrics of Bad Friday to be a little obnoxious. The smooth and chilly vocal harmonies that blossom on the chorus don't really provide much of a fiery release for all the tension being built up for the majority of the track. And then there were some of the lyrics on these songs too, which from what I understand are partially AI generated. Higgs himself estimates these lyrics make up about 7% of what you're actually hearing on the record, but also served as points of inspiration to write around in these songs too. Sometimes with this album it can be hard to tell what's being conceptualized and what's being AI generated, as in terms of the overall recipe here, it seems like more seasoning than it does stock. And Everything Everything is a band whose lyrics tend to run kind of abstract in the first place. Still, there are some obvious moments on this thing where we get absurdly blunt bars that feel almost like a glitch in the Matrix. Why don't you listen to your mom? She's old. It's odd because AI has become such a central theme around discussions with this record. With that comes implications of randomness, as if everything you'll be hearing here is just gobbledygook, when in fact Raw Data Feel is kind of Everything Everything's most conceptual and narrative album yet, even with these AI-generated lines being thrown out here and there. The band clearly has something to say on this record, as there are a series of narrative dots that you could connect from track to track, like with the track Pizza Boy, which is supposed to be a song about mind-numbing consumerism and isolation. And on this song, we also have Higgs singing very passionately, "I'll have a Coke, I'll have a Pepsi now, you are afraid that you are a pizza boy." Now, granted, the pizza boy does kind of represent something in the grander scheme of this album, and also comes up again narratively on the song Cut Up. Obviously, there's a series of themes going on with this record, but there had to have been a way to incorporate these AI-generated lines to where it didn't feel maybe as disruptive, because the occasional head-scratching bar or odd framing can take away more than it adds to this record's overall narrative concept, which has all these clear allusions to a technologically advanced dystopia that is both hopeless and soulless. And as long as we're talking about major themes on this LP, don't even get me started on Kevin and that man's car. He's on the song Cut Up, he's on METROLAND is Burning, he is on the track Shark Week, where he is described as being in his car and he's a cabbage just like me. There's also the track Kevin's Car, which is a weird moment of serenity on the album. The instrumental kicks off like a sunny piece of dancehall, giving way to some very slick and driving indie rock a la The Strokes. And the lyrics set a scene that feels like the struggles of the record so far are sort of dissipating. Hurt is gone, wars are won, but also my mind is erasing. It seems almost like there's a memory issue or an ignorance is is bliss kind of narrative going on as we are falling into you in the lyrics. The idyllic vibes continue on to the cut Born Under a Meteor as well, which instrumentally runs kind of like a little island lullaby with light and groovy toms and dreamy guitars, orbited by the strange touches of noise and electronics that make everything feel just a little bit unsettling. It's almost a plastic beach in that way. So without a doubt, Raw Data Feel is everything's most narratively intensive album yet, even if that narrative isn't playing out in a super clear or linear fashion. But I am kind of getting ahead of myself here in the review. I just want to say that the singles, the lead-up tracks here, I wasn't crazy about them, and oddly enough, they all kind of collect in the very front end of the album, like right there in the first leg. And immediately after that first leg where we move through all these tracks, everything starts dishing out some of the best songs I think they've released in years. Not only that, but the grim futurism and more electronic aesthetics of the subsequent tracks do kind of give these lead singles more context, more of a leg to stand on. But damn if when this thing starts I don't kind of want to skip to the track Jennifer. Either way, once the verses on this track begin, we get hit with some nice groovy new wave guitars and beats. Higgs croons away over this instrumental like he's a Brian Ferry or some kind of suave 80s synth pop frontman, which is a funny contrast to the lyrics of the track, which are about Jennifer on her way home realizing her life is a nightmare that she's kind of trapped in, with hauntingly beautiful refrains about the pain that you're dealing with being sort of a memory of your past, which may connect later to the mentions of one's mind being erased on the record. And I don't even want to spoil what happens to Raymond on this track. Raymond. On the song Metroland is Burning, the band embraces those new wave vibes even more deeply, especially when they hit this segue from the verses to the choruses. I've been waiting for you all my life. So Depeche Mode, but no sense of romantic whimsy or a darkness on this track, no. Instead, this line is met with vocal harmonies of but they don't give a flying fuck about us, as we're met with images of what seems like a horrible tragedy. They were looking for survivors, and now they're not. I am starting the fire. One must mutate in order to survive in this place. Scenes of escape off the planet Earth. Yeah, this album is not happy times. It's not happy times. Now, on everything album so far, there's at least one moment where the band kind of wears their Radiohead influence on their sleeve in an overt way. I would say Leviathan is that moment, with all of these gentle and chill art rock grooves being topped with some very Thom Yorke-inspired high-pitched falsettos. Of course, we have some eerie guitar leads and string sections that pop in later on the song. There's a growing intensity to the performance, too. Yeah, it's a little derivative, but it does work as a somber centerpiece for the LP, for sure. Things pick back up nicely on the sequenced and booming beats of Shark Week, which also features these massive, bright, enveloping synth hits. Great structure to the track, too, and with the lyrics on the song, we see a sense of revolution in the face of a control that people are facing, and it doesn't kind of seem like it's like an authoritarian iron fist. It's more of a complacency that everyone's feeling as a result of conditions that they're in. Now, the track Cut Up is another bop in the track list here. Now, this track instrumentally may be more synthetic than anything off of Get to Heaven, but the intense vocal performance, tight beats, and addictive hook make it feel like something off of that record. Then My Computer I saw as another songwriting triumph for the band, where they bring another great structure, solid chorus, evocative lyrics, as well as like a perfect balance between a mix of hope, but then also a lot of dread for the future, the days to come. Now, the final moments of the LP, I kind of already talked about Kevin's Car or Born Under a Meteor, which do provide an interesting tone shift after My Computer with a lot of very beautiful instrumentation, but then the grim touches in the lyrics turn these tracks into more bittersweet moments. And then we have the closing track, Software Great Man, where the sentiment of this album overall I think boils down pretty nicely and pretty clearly in key lyrics like the fish are swimming in and out of our rooms. I just thought that maybe I'd get used to doom. I don't know how to get over this thing cause it's always there. Just kind of a sense that the nagging and dark and very upsetting feelings throughout the rest of this LP aren't really going away. They're not letting up. Though I found asking Are You a Gambling Man at the very end of this thing to be a very inconclusive way to close this record out, even with the instrumental past this point on the song progressing into this really interesting mix of art rock and post-rock guitars building against these driving electronic beats, some cool and surreal layered chops of Higgs vocals too. And overall, I'm liking this album a lot. I think it is Everything's best record in years. There's a cool concept there. I think going in more of an electronic direction is kind of exactly what the band needed to refresh things a bit and give the fans a vibrant new sound and direction. The way they worked in elements of synth pop and new wave and electronic dance music across the LP was really creative too. And yet much of this LP still rocked, like some of the best moments in the Everything catalog thus far in the past. Sure, I wasn't crazy about many of the singles, and there were some spots where I think the AI-generated text could have been worked in more purposefully, not to mention the overall concept coming together a bit more clearly, but I can see why this record is getting the praise among fans that it has received so far, and I'm certainly enjoying a lot of the LP too. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, everything, forever.